Good morning, you guys. It is Amanda and Barron, and we are back again with Kicking Cancer Cares. And our sponsor for this second half used to be Marianne McNally. So again, we just want to say thank you so much to Marianne and honor her. Please do not let her die in vain, and we appreciate everything she did to support people in need, people with cancer, and this show and getting our message out. So
yeah. And if you missed the first half of the show, you can always catch it on podcast on Monday. But the whole first half, we did honor Marianne's memory.
Yes.
And I think that Marianne would be totally fine with me saying, we need a sponsor for the second half of the show. We're 2.5 years in, and Marianne sponsored that second half for almost 2 full years. Mm-hmm. But your sponsorship is radio advertising, but it's what pays for the production work of this show. And we are looking for a sponsor currently. So if you're a business out there that would like to assist with that, you can email Amanda at
KSLM.news.
Yes. Well, I'm thrilled that during the commercial break, if those that are watching on YouTube will actually be able to tell we have headphones on now, we had a guest call in during the break. Melinda, are you on the phone with us still?
I am.
So tell our listeners, where are you calling from?
I am calling from Billings, Montana.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And there's a really great reason that Melinda's calling in. She and I have been kind of emailing back and forth for a while, so I'm glad she was able to call in.
Okay.
Melinda, this show is airing on November the 30th, and I believe you told me it was 15 years ago on December the 1st that you got the signal you were clear, right?
Well, it was 15 years ago, December 1st, that I was diagnosed with cholangiocarcinoma. So it'll be my 15-year cancerversary.
Cancerversary.
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations. And you're free of cancer, I'm assuming, if that was 15 years ago?
Yes, that was 15 years ago. I am technically, yes, no evidence of disease, I guess you could say. No active cancer right now, but for a cholangiocarcinoma patient or a stage 4 terminal cholangiocarcinoma patient, being here 15 years later is pretty much a miracle. And so thrilled and happy to be hitting this milestone, and really wanted to celebrate it and offer hope to others.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to breeze over a phrase that you just barely said. You were stage 4 terminal.
Yes.
15 years ago. I mean, that's pretty powerful in itself.
Very.
Yeah.
I want to break down that really fancy word that you just said. Cholangiocarcinoma. Where exactly in the body is that cancer?
Yes, so cholangiocarcinoma is it's a rare cancer. It's a form of bile duct cancer. And mine originated in the bile ducts inside my liver, so I was technically an intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma patient. And there's also extrahepatic, where it originates in the bile ducts that are outside the liver. It's also called hilar or distal cholangiocarcinoma, but the difference being one starts inside the liver in the bile ducts and the other outside of the liver in the bile ducts. Both are considered rare cancers.
Okay. And I did a little research, kind of looking at some pictures. The bile duct is a little duct that goes into the liver from your small intestines. Is that correct?
That is true. It carries bile from your liver into your small intestine and aids in the digestion of your fats and foods, and helps to cleanse the liver.
Okay.
Well, Amanda is notorious, Melinda, for telling me that I don't let grass grow very often.
You don't.
I don't. So I did do a little research on this particular cancer. In the U.S. in 2023, there were 29,380 people that passed from this particular cancer.
Wow.
And 2023, 41,210 brand new cases.
Wow.
But what I find really intriguing, and I know that you've got some insights on this, Melinda, globally, the highest occurrence of this cancer is in Asia.
Oh, interesting.
And in China specifically, it's one of the top 3 cancers. So it's a rare cancer in the United States, but it's a very high, very prevalent cancer in China.
Interesting.
Globally, in 2020, because they do like 10-year increments, and globally, 905,700 new cases of this particular cancer, and 830,200 passed away.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Baron, I would imagine that you're probably looking at the statistics of both liver, hepatic, and cholangiocarcinoma mixed together, because sometimes cholangiocarcinoma is considered a type of liver cancer, especially the intrahepatic. And so those numbers are quite high for the U.S. incidence. If you were to separate out the bile duct cancer, it's definitely lower. But I think the point is that the incidence of liver and intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma are rising, and so are the death rates. And why we see a lot of other cancers going the other way, these ones are definitely going up, and we definitely want to bring awareness and research to the situation. And as you touched on, in Asia, especially in the Thailand area, they have a high volume of these bile duct cancers of cholangiocarcinoma due to the food they eat. The fish in the river there, they eat a raw form of this fish that causes parasites or liver flukes to live in their bile ducts for years and years, and then it turns into bile duct cancer anywhere from 20 to 30 years later. But that's why the incidence is like anywhere from 40 to 60 times higher than it is here in the U.S.
Which was interesting, because I know that Melinda and I were talking on the phone, days ahead of time. I said to Melinda, why is it so high in Asia?
Yeah.
Well, we don't eat raw fish.
Mm-hmm. And they do.
And they eat raw fish, and this parasite is inside the raw fish, and so the parasite's living in that bile duct. And thank you for clarifying that, because, again, numbers are numbers, and like you said, this is probably all liver cancers, not just this one specific one. But we didn't get a chance to say this a little earlier, Melinda. So you live in Billings, Montana, but you actually work alongside, is it the Liver Cancer Organization?
I work for the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation, and it's a nonprofit advocacy organization that was founded in 2006 by Stacy Lindsay in the Salt Lake City area. She lost her brother. He was 38 years old when he was diagnosed with this cancer, and they really did a lot of research and tried to gather as much information as they could back then. When he was diagnosed, he was a healthy individual. He had just got done running a marathon and had this diagnosis, and unfortunately, he only survived about 18 months. But before he passed away, he really wanted to start a foundation and gather information to help support the patients that came after him. And so that's what she's done. And so, it's been around since 2006, and it's continued to grow. And, our priorities are patients and caregivers, and then research. And we focus our efforts and our funding on providing patients and caregivers the tools, the education, the resources, and the support they need to navigate this diagnosis. And then also helping to bring together all the collaborators of research, the physicians, the experts from all around the world, to come together and really find a way to accelerate the research for these patients.
Yeah.
Well, last week our guest was a lady from the Pancreatic Cancer Society in Portland, and it was her sister-in-law who had passed from pancreatic cancer, which kind of motivated her to get this affiliate group going to the Portland area. It's interesting how dramatic situations, like in 2006, this guy who's 38 years old and living a healthy life, and he passes.
Yeah.
How did you get connected with them, since you're in Montana and they're in Salt Lake?
Yeah, so when I was diagnosed in 2009, I was 41 years old. I was a paramedic, and I was in pretty good shape and had no other previous history. So the diagnosis for me came as a surprise as well. But I had never heard of cholangiocarcinoma before, so like most people do, I Googled it. And unfortunately, when you Google it, the statistics and the information you read about is quite terrifying. And I kept scrolling, kept looking for more information, and I stumbled upon the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. And they had a discussion board at the time I was diagnosed, and so I was able to connect with other patients on that discussion board and hear about the information that they had learned during their diagnosis, what they were doing, who they were seeing, what kind of treatments they were having, because back then there is no cure for cholangiocarcinoma. There was a standard of care chemotherapy, but it was palliative treatment only. And technically, since that time I was diagnosed, we've had 7 FDA approvals, and actually just had an FDA approval last week specific to cholangiocarcinoma. So there's been a lot of research being done, but we have a long ways to go because there's still nothing curative. We're seeing more longer-term survivors, but there's a long ways to go. And like pancreatic, cholangiocarcinoma is similar in the diagnosis and in the I guess the how terrifying and scary it is, and the lack of treatments. So definitely still a lot of work to do, a lot of work for the foundation to do. But that's how I got connected. I came on as a volunteer and started helping other patients navigate their diagnosis, and then was fortunate enough to be able to come on as a full-time employee as I went through my treatment and ultimately had a clinical trial that was successful. I really wanted to find a way to pay it forward, and that's why I started volunteering with them.
Nice.
I love that story.
Nice. You used a phrase earlier, and I want to circle back to it. It's one that anyone that's going through the cancer journey wants to hear, and the acronym is NED, but it's no evidence of disease.
Okay.
Right.
And
right.
If you were told at your age that you had stage 4 terminal cancer, and then all of a sudden you're just like, well, there's no evidence of disease. That is such a good thing to hear.
Okay. Yes.
How long ago did they tell you that, Melinda?
So it's been 7 years since I've had any form of treatment. It's still something that just never leaves the back of my mind. This disease has a high recurrence rate, so it's something I get scanned and blood work every year for. But yeah, it's incredible. The best chance at survival for this cancer is to be able to have surgery if the tumor's confined to the liver. And unfortunately, most patients are caught when it's at an advanced stage and don't get that opportunity. But even when they are able to have surgery, that recurrence rate is pretty high, like 75%, where it comes back after surgery. And so, yeah, to be here 15 years later, I just know how fortunate I am and how blessed I am. And it just means a lot to be able to help others, and to be able to help advance the science so that others can be here longer.
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted. Every year I get nervous getting those scans and just always wondering, but I will take it for, every day that I can.
Yeah.
How did you first find out that you had it? Was there symptoms?
Yeah. So that's the tricky part, is this is kind of a silent diagnosis where the actual symptoms don't form until, or really, cause stress until late in the game. For me, I had right shoulder pain, but I was a paramedic and I carried a pack and monitor on my shoulder and thought that's what it was from.
Right.
And I had a lot of fatigue, but I worked 24-hour shifts, so everything I kept playing off to my job. And then I started having some upper epigastric pain under my right rib cage, and that's when they thought I might have gallstones. And fortunately, my primary care doc sent me for an ultrasound, and they found a large 13 by 9 centimeter mass on my liver that I had no idea was there.
That's pretty good size.
Yeah, that is.
13 by 9 centimeters is a pretty good size lump there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
They were able to do surgery, but like I said, unfortunately, 3 months later, it returned in my lungs.
Yeah.
So it starts in basically the liver region, but it came back in your lungs. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, it most likely had already metastasized to my lungs. It was just so small we didn't see it.
Right.
And I'm glad they didn't see it, because they wouldn't have done that surgery. And they removed 2/3 of my liver to get that tumor out, which I think bought me some time to find the clinical trial that ultimately got me here today. But yeah, when it came back in my lungs. Eventually it spread back to my liver, just because the chemos didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. So for about 18 months I did 3 different chemo regimens on and off with not a lot of success. And by the end of that 18 months, 2 years into my diagnosis, I had tumors all over both my lungs and all over my liver. And I actually had stopped all treatment because I wanted what time I had left to be quality time. Yeah. And it wasn't. My quality of life was not good at the time. But fortunately, literally like 3 weeks later, I stumbled upon a clinical trial at the National Cancer Institute.
Wow.
And it had some chemo, but only a week's worth to wipe out your immune system. But then it was your immune system doing the work to try to fight the cancer. And I just remember looking at my husband and saying, we should give this a shot.
Why not?
And and it all changed. It changed everything.
So you qualified for this clinical trial, and that was really kind of the game changer for you, it sounds like.
It was a game changer. It was a trial out at the National Cancer Institute in Bethesda, Maryland, and at the time it was called a GI TIL trial, and they actually go in and resect tumors and pull the T cells from those tumors, and then grow them in the billions in the lab, and then put them back into you to try to fight the cancer or attack the cancer.
Okay.
And it's pretty incredible. It's an adoptive cell therapy. Kind of like CAR T, but different. It's called TIL, tumor infiltrating lymphocytes.
Okay.
And I was the 9th person to enter into this trial, but the first one with cholangiocarcinoma, and I was actually the first one to have a response.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's huge. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that all the pieces fell where they were so that you could have that opportunity.
Yeah, me too. It was just a miracle how it all played out.
Yeah.
Just me finding it even. And my husband and I had to do all the work ourselves to get out there, to get into this clinical trial. Prior to that, I wanted to be in a clinical trial because I'd done enough research on this cancer to know if I wanted to find a way to beat it at age 41, a mother of 6, that it had to be something new because what was available wasn't curative. But back then, my insurance wouldn't cover the standard of care costs that went into being in a clinical trial, which I didn't even know was possible, but it kind of threw me for a loop. So I chose not to do a clinical trial at first because I didn't want to put my family in financial hardship. But the National Cancer Institute is a federally funded research facility, so they cover all your medical costs, and they covered my expenses from flying from Billings, Montana to Bethesda, Maryland, which made all the difference in the world for us to be able to enter into this trial.
So you can't see this on the phone, and I know that our YouTube channel can. All of the hairs on Amanda's arms are currently standing up. She is so excited for your story.
Those are like all God moments that led you right to where you needed to be.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's powerful.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting as you're telling me all this, Melinda, is Ashlie is our videographer. She's on our staff. She's going to take this whole show and take it to YouTube. And at the age that you were going through this is the age that Ashley's at right now. So to be going through what you went through at 41, I'm 61, so I'm past that age. But the ladies in the room with me, they're kind of in shock right now that you went through that at the age that they're sitting at.
Well, and I think what throws me the most is that your symptoms, it was your shoulder hurting.
Yeah.
That's not
right.
We wouldn't normally put those two things together. Like you said, you thought it was just work related, carrying something on that shoulder, which I think most people would assume.
Sure.
But we've talked to many cancer patients that they have just crazy side effects in random areas that have nothing to do with their actual targeted area. And so it's so important. If something is going wrong with your body is talking to you. Go get checked.
Yeah. Well,
yes, I think we are the experts on our own body. And yes, so many patients I've talked to over the years too, they just have noticed or recognized that it wasn't normal and kept pushing and pushing, and then ultimately ended up with the diagnosis. But that is the whole thing is we need better earlier diagnostic testing and screening for this cancer, and we don't have it yet, but hopefully we'll get there.
Yes.
Well, two things I want to let you know. I am actually wearing one of our green Kicking Cancer shirts. Now, the reason I wore green is because Marianne, who was in the first half of the show, it starts as breast cancer, and Amanda's wearing pink for the breast cancer. When hers came back, it went into her bones, and then when it left her bones, it went to her liver. And ultimately, she passed because they couldn't take care of the liver situation. So I wore green in honor of Marianne because of the liver, but it also kind of fitting that, the bile duct is a liver cancer.
Yeah.
So I am shipping a green shirt to Billings, Montana in your honor, Melinda.
Thank you so much. Green is our color.
I love
we
it.
do the green ribbon, and so yes, that it couldn't be more perfect.
Well, I will. Once it gets there, I will look forward to seeing a picture of you proudly wearing a
Yes.
Kickin'Cancer green shirt of Billings, Montana. You will be the only person currently in Billings, Montana with a Kickin'Cancer shirt. But more than happy to. Yeah.
I will wear it proudly and send you a picture.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us. And I formed Kickin'Cancer just over 6 years ago because my sister's situation, I just wanted to provide hope for other people. When Amanda and I started this show, we realized this show could provide hope, and it's stories like yours that are out there providing hope.
Exactly.
To have the diagnosis you did, stage 4 terminal.
Yeah.
15 years ago, it is a bit fitting that this show is going to air one day before your 15-year cancerversary. So.
Yeah. Again, it all falls into place, and I agree. It's. I just want to give someone a sliver of hope to know that if I can be here 15 years later, there's always a possibility that they can too.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
we've been doing a little timeline in Kickin'Cancer's adventures over the last years. It is a bit fortuitous. I don't know how many times this is going to happen. One more time it's going to happen. It was March of 2022, and there's a local band here in town called JFK. They're a really popular band. They're awesome, like 80s music. The drummer in that band had become a friend of mine. His name is Mike Lowry, and JFK had worked alongside a brewery called Sandy M Brewing. Mm-hmm. They also make the beers for Odd Moe's.
Yep.
And they had a beer it was a JFK beer. It was a red, white, and blue patriotic-looking can. And Mike said, maybe JFK could collaborate to do a beer for Kickin'Cancer. So on the 22nd of March, 2022, I sat over at Sandy M Brewing with the band, the guy who owned the brewery, myself, dreaming up this idea of maybe creating a beer. Mm-hmm. And they did. And you'll love, again, the way this all comes together. We're all wearing green. The beer was actually a lime lager.
Okay.
And the can had a lot of green on it. And it was basically designed to take like a Corona with a lime in it. That was the design of the beer. They made one full pallet of that beer, and then part of the proceeds would come back to Kickin'Cancer. They sold that beer before the summer was gone because it was designed to be kind of a summer, beer.
Yeah.
And when it was all said and done, we got a nice little check from Sandy M Brewing. But along our timeline was when the JFK Kickin'Cancer beer was created.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
It was a lime lager beer.
And you guys have a few through CNEM now, right?
Yeah, so
we support Kickin'Cancer.
The pizza, they have done 3 now with the pizza. Their first one was yellow, and it was kind of a wheat IPA. Then they did their own green one. And then they also did a blueberry Hefeweizen.
Okay, yeah.
And then they worked alongside the basketball team, the Capitals, and they created 3 more, two beers and a cider. So we've had 6 of them with Odd Moe's, and then 1 with JFK.
I love it.
And they're all created at Sandy M Brew, which is a local brewery here in Melinda in the Salem area. But I have a meeting with Mike Lowry next week, because he said, we need to find another beer that JFK can do alongside you guys.
I love that.
So we're going to figure out what the next beer with JFK will be.
Yes.
And hopefully early January we can announce that beer.
Okay. Perfect.
Maybe I'll bring Mike Lowry and he can announce it himself.
Right. There you go. There you go.
But it's been a wonderful collaboration with them, and we really appreciate Sandy M Brewing's support. What's intriguing, and it's something you said as well, Melinda, to beat cancer, this isn't a one person or a one organization. This is a collaboration. There's a phrase that I started, and a few other organizations are working with me, and I say one voice, one mission. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter whether it's Breast Friends whether it's the PanCan group up in Portland, whoever it is. Like, I'm not trying to steal your donors. Your donors will support you. But if we work together, one voice, one mission, collectively, we can curb the number of cases that are occurring with many cancers.
100.
You know, I mean, the numbers with the liver cancer that Melinda was talking about globally, that's almost 1 million cases of liver cancer alone.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just bring awareness to these people in Southeast Asia, like, you need to cook that fish.
Yeah.
Right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're almost out of time, Melinda. Thank you so much for calling
Yes,
in.
thank you, Melinda.
And congratulations on your cancerversary.
That's awesome.
Thank you guys so much for letting me chat with you. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about my story, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, well,
We would normally thank Marianne right now.
yeah,
Let's
so
honor her.
this is a different, and this will probably be a struggle closing each show for a while, but huge shout out to Marianne McNally, who we lost last week to cancer. So cancer won that battle, but we're not going to let her die in vain, and we're going to still honor her and her memory and her family. And so, yeah, if you guys could keep her family in your prayers, we would really appreciate that as they go through this difficult time. All right, we'll be back next week as
the movement continues.